The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report, TV and radio. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998.
This week, it's a special edition of the Pro Wrestling Report, Primetime Television. We go in-depth on the politics of professional wrestling. You hear about it all the time, but what does it all really mean? We look at some stories that were directly related to the politics of pro wrestling and break them down for you and talk about whether or not politicking is a good thing. That right here, right now, on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Television Special Edition.
This is the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime TV, the longest-running pro wrestling news program in the world, with your hosts, David Hero and Damian Nelson.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Television. It's Thursday, June 23rd, and David Hero, a special edition here tonight as we talk about the politics of professional wrestling, an in-depth and detailed discussion on several stories that are directly related to the politics of professional wrestling. And you always hear about this. You always hear people talk about, oh, it's politics. A person's in the doghouse. They're not getting a push because they got released because. Well,
they're not going to put them over because.
We are going to break down some of those situations, some public and some not so public, from the past and from currently, and talk to you about why politics is not something that's exclusive to professional wrestling. You work, you have a job, most of you out there. There's politics in your office.
Not if you're the boss.
There's politics if you're the boss. And, well, it might not be on the same level of being on a nationally broadcast series of television shows. Politics exists in each business and in each entity that is out there. But the question, David Hero, is when you look at the National Football League, the National Basketball Association, Major League Baseball, and the Women's National Basketball Association, are politics as much a factor? Because politics in wrestling will mean at times that a person who the fans might like or enjoy or who can perform and deliver may not get that shot to do so, meaning a good business decision is not being made. Do we see the same thing cross over from wrestling into other major sports?
There's a little bit in major sports, but not much because, let's face it, wrestling's fake.
It's a controlled situation with a premeditated outcome.
So, like, the Packers aren't going to bench Aaron Rodgers because of whatever. The Packers aren't going to...
Because he's in a band?
The Packers aren't going to trade away Chris Jackie because he slept with the coach's daughter.
Whoa. What are you saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm just,
Disclaim that, please.
What are you talking about?
Disclaim that. You just alleged that somebody's sleeping with the coach's daughter.
I didn't say that at all. I said they're not going to do that. Or would they do that? But with wrestling, it's a completely different story because everyone in wrestling is replaceable. You can find someone else to be
Except for
someone
the Miz.
else. Yeah. That's replaceable.
What is this?
Is
that Chris Masters?
That is how big The Miz has gotten.
Look, I am asking you to do this. Erase the hate.
I have no hate.
You have hate. You've brought out a frickin' prop. We're trying to have a serious discussion here. You've brought out a frickin' prop.
He's not even as big as a cell phone.
You got to stop this. We're having a real discussion here.
We're talking about politics, and The Miz is one of the biggest politicker of all time.
And look what it did for him.
Yeah, got in a program with Alex Riley.
He is a former WWE champion. He headlined WrestleMania.
He's the main event of WrestleMania.
First story I want to talk about, David, is the much controversial story from back in 1992. When Ric Flair came over to WWE as the real world's champion, had the belt, had the title, won the Royal Rumble, seemed like he was going into WrestleMania to face the obvious challenger, which would be Hulk Hogan. At that WrestleMania,
that was the dream match.
At that WrestleMania, it was teased that it would be Hogan's last matchup. He ended up in a match with Sid, which would lead to the return of the Ultimate Warrior, who we spoke about last week. The match never happened. And now we've heard some of the backstory about why that match never happened, and we had the opportunity to see that match happen here in the Bradley Center at a house show because they took that match all over the country for various house show matchups, and the powers that be in WWE deciding that it didn't have the draw that they thought it did. Thus, the match never happened on television.
Who would have thought that Vince McMahon, who would have had the wrestling fans' dream WrestleMania main event, Hogan versus Flair, had it and didn't use it?
It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And there's much more to the story, and a lot of it shrouded in controversy, where ego's involved. It ended up being the Macho Man and Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8. A great match and a great story, by the way. But fans, I don't ever think there was a huge backlash. Granted, the internet and social media wasn't around back then. I don't ever think there was a huge backlash over the fact that the match never happened because people in Bemidji, Minnesota, Waterloo, Iowa, and the like got the match in their hometown. Was it a smarter decision by WWE to take that match around the country and get the money there than put it on WrestleMania, which at the time was a guaranteed...
They still could have done that. How many times did The Rock and Austin battle all around the nation to still headline WrestleMania? Not once, but twice.
Different situation.
It's Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair.
I know. Rock, Austin was not that epic match that you'd waited a decade for. Now, we then saw WCW do it on Bash at the Beach in 1994 when Hogan came into WCW.
Terrible.
Really?
Yes.
Shaq was there at the old arena.
So was Mr. T.
Well, you know, trying to...
But it was terrible because nobody wanted it.
I thought it was a good match.
But
it was epic.
But
it was WCW's largest attended event in its history. It was the event that garnered the most pay-per-view buys in business in its history. It was the match people wanted to see.
That?
And this was some 2 years after the match didn't happen in WWF. What happened after that?
Yeah.
Well, Hogan continued being a good guy, got booed, then joined the NWO 2 years later.
Politics screwed up what could have been a great WrestleMania. Hogan versus Sid was not good.
Well, the Ultimate Warrior came back. Who remembers the match? I don't remember the match.
I remember, the Warrior coming back and Papa Shango being there.
I remember he had the skull, and Sid was getting a chair from ringside, and the Ultimate Warrior's music hit.
With his short bob haircut.
That was when the different Ultimate Warrior 2 came in.
Stop.
There were two of them. You haven't heard?
It's always been the same one.
Come on, David Hero, they all know out there. There were
and
two
they're
Ultimate
all wrong.
Warriors.
That's the problem.
The first Ultimate Warrior wouldn't have gotten into this Twitter battle with Hulk Hogan.
Stop it.
Was it a good business decision by WWE? Did they botch, if you will, the money match that they could have had to headline WrestleMania 8?
As far as I'm concerned, they did, because that should have been the headlining main event. Because those two guys would have turned it up. They would have made it something special. They felt Flair wasn't a big enough star to be with Hogan. Mm-hmm. But Sid...
Because Flair was what? A territory star. And what was WWE so against? Territories.
Right. But at the same point, Ric Flair was one of the few territory stars that didn't really change his name, look, and gimmick.
Mm-hmm. So he had to have some value.
Absolutely.
Everything was heading in that direction, though. Everything was heading in that direction. And then a screeching halt it came to. And on the True Story of WrestleMania DVD, some members of WWE's offices explain, to a degree, why that match never happened. Seems like an epic fail.
I would rather hear from Hogan and Flair what really happened, not the Office Stooges as to what happened.
Well, really, that would be two entirely different versions of the story, and neither would be the truth.
I bet you Flair's would be honest. A bottle or two of wine, I bet she tells you everything.
The next story, as we talk about politics and professional wrestling, the burial of Triple H. 1996, David Hero, Madison Square Garden. Shawn Michaels,
Kevin Nash,
Scott Hall, and Triple H in the ring at Madison Square Garden.
Who got the last laugh, though, if you really think about it?
We'll get to that in a minute. They give a farewell tribute to Nash and Hall, who were on their way to WCW, much to the chagrin of WWE. Shawn Michaels, the big star at the time, protected, if you will. Politic number one. Somebody had to get punished to send a message to the boys, if you will. Politic number two. That person was Triple H, who a month later, I believe, in the Mecca Arena here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for the King of the Ring '96, was in a dark match with Aldo Montoya. 1 year after that, though, David Hero, 1 year after that, he would take the reins of D-Generation X when Shawn Michaels, 2 years actually, sorry, and when Shawn Michaels would leave after his match with Austin at WrestleMania 14, and then Triple H would become one of the biggest stars in the history of the business and a 16-time world champion.
But let's not forget, he also got buried by the Ultimate Warrior. He was
WrestleMania 12.
He was losing.
Ultimate Warrior just keeps coming up.
He's always there. The pig pen matches against Henry Godwin gets crushed nonstop by him.
In your house,
gets
December
buried
96.
for a year straight. Doesn't get put over not
But stuck
once.
with it.
Well, yeah, because he knew he was going to marry Stephanie McMahon.
Clearly, he
Become
knew
the
that at
king
the
of
time, right?
kings.
Yeah, he knew that, right?
Of course,
He was
did.
banging
He's Triple
China.
H.
He was in the back door to China. It turned out well for him.
He is the second most powerful man in wrestling.
So politics hurt you, but maybe they help you as well. Because in this case, now Triple
he
H
did a
is,
180.
he is known as the politicker in the business. And if you're not on Triple H or John Cena's side in WWE, good luck getting anything. Whether that's true or not, that's the belief out there. And you got to think, John Cena has influence. Triple H,
Well, okay, Triple
Ross's
H
daughter,
has influence with Sheamus. He got a hell of a run, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. But
You know,
what happened? If Triple H has so much influence now,
he got
Sheamus-
tired of his toy. He's looking for a new toy. And you just tossed his new toy over there.
The punishment of Triple H, back to the original point of the story, the punishment of Triple H in 1996. Shawn Michaels was there. Why didn't he get
Because
punished?
he was the world champion. He was the
There's
guy
your
they
politics.
were building the company around.
There's your politics. Mm-hmm. I was going to use the word fair, but there's no such thing as fair.
Well, you can't say fair without saying balanced, and that gets you all flustered.
There's going to be no discussion about the Fox Entertainment Network here tonight.
I wasn't talking about it.
You brought it up. That's their little slogan, fair and balanced. If you want to share with the world that you watched that smut, those lies.
You know, I've had heat with them ever since they fly me out there, and then I don't get to go on the show. Glenn Beck has yet to call me back.
Is there a bigger turnaround from a burial in the wrestling business than Triple H's story? Over a year, David Hero, as you pointed out, over a year.
probably
he was barking
not.
from the doghouse.
Probably not.
The most recent, pretty significant story, and I think it came to a head last week on Monday Night Raw from Long Island, New York, is a man who has become a YouTube sensation, a man who arguably hasn't ever been one of the most popular wrestlers in WWE, but maybe now he is with that 10% of the audience that Eric Bischoff likes to talk about. Zack Ryder, who is relegated to only appearing backstage as John Cena walks past or wrestling on Superstars, some say, maybe due to the Z True Long Island Story series that he's doing on YouTube. How could you not have used this man who the fans chanted for all night long in Long Island last Monday night on Raw? What are we missing? He has made himself into something relevant in professional wrestling amongst the sample audience of fans that are on the internet.
One of the things that I've heard, Damian Nelson, is that they wanted to bring the Long Island Z, whatever it is, to the .com website.
WWE?
Yes. Says, hey, bring it over here. Let's get some more views and hits on the website. And he said no. He wasn't interested. He wanted to keep
Why
it
would
on
he say
YouTube.
no to that?
Creative control, who knows? If Vince McMahon wants your product on his website, knowing by doing so he's going to probably push you, you do it. It's his own fault. That's politics right there, getting involved in the whole thing. Because he told them no. Now, okay, now watch. Now just sit there and just dry up.
But he won't. His popularity has been gaining. How long can WWE ignore Zack Ryder?
Forever. It's the E.
So Zack Ryder gets big, gets a big head. He's got this YouTube thing. He's popular. He's big. He's huge. He leaves WWE, goes to TNA, loses every bit of it right then and there.
Yeah, because he can't do the Zack Ryder thing.
Be careful what you ask for because you just might get it. And while politics are impacting Zack Ryder's career right now, Politics also impacted another man's career who the fans loved, became champion, lost it a week later. Christian, who came over from TNA Wrestling and ended up in WWE's doghouse for a while.
But here's why he's in the doghouse for a while.
Why?
Right before his contract was up, Vince McMahon goes to him and says, hey, you're going to re-sign with us, right? Not go to TNA. He tells Vince, yes, I'm going to resign.
Perhaps that's what he was thinking at the time.
And then he goes to TNA. So as far as Vince McMahon is concerned, the guy lied to him. The last thing he said to him was a lie.
But they hire him back. They pay him good money.
But you know what? You can pay him all the money you want, okay? That's just one part of being in the wrestling business. The other part is they're so self-absorbed. Their egos are ridiculous that they believe that being the world champion is being the world champion.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you just have the guy there and not really put him anywhere and don't really put him over and just have him on ECW, that goes at your psyche. What, am I not good enough to be on Raw? Am I not good enough to be on SmackDown? I'm not being used the right way? Other guys are passing me on the card?
Mental toughness has long been. And with a lot of people who get these big pushes in WWE, sometimes you see those pushes pulled back because of maybe they're being tested on that mental toughness.
It's a game.
Go ahead.
The whole thing is a game. They want to break you. They want to see what you're willing to do, how far you're willing to go. And they just try to completely destroy your psyche.
With the goal of what? What's the benefit of that?
Owning them.
Is it not ensuring you don't have another Brock Lesnar situation, a man who got burned out, a man who wasn't committed, a man who never got that test, a man who ultimately left the company at the height of his popularity and is now one of the top stars in UFC?
Whenever they want to.
No, they can't.
Yes, they can.
No, they can't.
Tell me who can't quit whenever
They're contracted.
So they don't show up. They quit.
Okay. Then they get sued and blah, 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 never work again. You're never going to work in this company again, in this business again.
But that never happens.
Will WWE change and give Zack Ryder that opportunity, or will the politics of professional wrestling continue to hold him back? Will his denial of moving to WWE.com eventually wear off and WWE realize that they've got a star there? Or, as I said, be careful what you wish for. Will it be as popular? Will he be as popular once he's actually used?
If he's truly as talented as everybody says he is, he will always
creatively
find a way to get over. You can't hold back true talent. You can try to suppress it, but it's always going to be there. And they proved it last week on Raw when the crowd was chanting for the guy. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's his hometown.
Right.
And all it takes is for a couple ham and eggers out there to start chanting something, and then the whole section is going to start to chant it. But at the end of the day, Vince McMahon, all he has to do is put his thumb on that flame and it's extinguished.
As he did with Christian.
As he did with Ted DiBiase, as he did with pretty much Kofi Kingston. Mm-hmm. Everyone that started to get over, he wipes them out. Spirit Squad, how over were those jokers?
So they got shipped away?
Exactly. You're only as good as your last appearance on TV. And when you're off TV, you're forgotten about.
Rapidly.
Exactly.
You've got Chris Jericho, amongst others, talking about how silly it is for WWE to not be using Zack Ryder. Mm-hmm. Will that pressure build enough to force a decision?
Not at all.
Really? Do you think they wanted to pay The Rock all this money and bring The Rock back?
How many thousands of fans booed John Cena nonstop? Did Vince ever Vince ever turn him heel?
No.
Never. Because Vince does what Vince wants to do. Here's a prime example, okay? There is a former talent that is now in TNA, okay, who's doing very well on TNA. Stephanie made the comment he was a good-looking guy. Triple H didn't want to hear that. Cut out his legs from underneath him. Who knows? Maybe Pat Patterson thought, Zack Ryder's a good-looking guy. Maybe Vince thought he had great-looking legs. You never know.
Isn't it within their right to do whatever they damn well please?
It's his company. Absolutely. You know, people will sit there and say, like when I do my shows, why do you bring in so-and-so? Why do you bring in so-and-so? Last I checked, it's my show.
But isn't there an obligation to the paying public, the viewing public,
We know
to
what they
deliver?
want. We know what they want.
If WWE truly knew what they wanted, over the limits buy rates wouldn't have been in the crapper, and their ratings for Raw would be in the
because
crapper.
people like yourself
Here we go.
wanted The Miz.
Here we go.
Right? The most watched champion of all time. Must-see champ.
Yep, 1 million buys for WrestleMania.
And stop it. That was all Del Rio and The Rock. Now,
Yeah, and the opening match. If The Miz were in that place in the World Championship matchup, World Heavyweight Championship matchup, opening the show, we'd have never heard the end of that. But since your boy Del Rio, the Teflon Del Rio, since he did it, it's because this, that, and the other thing. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You really should.
I'm not.
It's not The Miz, it's John Cena, and you damn well know it.
No, The Miz wasn't a strong challenger for John Cena going into that
Because
match.
he should still be champion.
He should still be champion. I've said that from day one. I did. Hey, if they're going to put him through Mania, let him go for a while as champ. He means nothing without a prop in his hand.
Meaning the belt.
Or a suitcase.
Obviously, it's within WWE's right to do whatever they so choose to do. But again, the question, isn't there an obligation to deliver what the fans want?
What do the fans
When
really
the fans
want?
are very vocal, they were vocal about Christian. They were
Okay.
vocal about Zack Ryder. They continue to be vocal about Zack Ryder.
I don't think there's enough fans that care about Zack Ryder. You know, people say, well, his T-shirt keeps selling out.
Well,
They probably print 6. You know?
this story comes and goes in wrestling time and time again. There's that darling star. And, you talk about the popularity of a Daniel Bryan Danielson. And then you look at how popular he was in WWE. And David Hero, I got to say, when he made that return at SummerSlam last year, he got a tremendous pop.
But it's SummerSlam. It's one of the biggest pay-per-views of all time. And look who brought him back. He got the John Cena rub.
Mm-hmm. Many stories have been told. No names will be mentioned, no specifics will be mentioned, but many stories have been told about top WWE talents who have deliberately backstabbed and kept others down for their own benefit.
Or different relations with other people for their own benefit.
And it's long been said that that's wrong, that should be frowned upon. But at the same time, they're looking out for themselves and protecting their spot. And how can you
Absolutely.
fault them for doing that?
I don't... listen, your shelf life as a wrestler is short. Get in, make the money, and get out before it consumes you.
And if you're a Vince McMahon, you've got that close circle of friends, if you will, the people that you're going to consult with. If you're a Triple H, if you're Stephanie McMahon, you're going to seek advice. Maybe you're on the fence on somebody or something. You're going to seek advice, and you know who he's going to go to. It's going to be Cena. It's going to be Triple H. Might even be The Undertaker. Those are the people that know. And one person who doesn't have that reputation is The Undertaker. One person who's been mentioned as a guy that will help you and will tell you as well if you're not that guy or if you don't have it, has been The Undertaker. And his popularity has always been there. Since the day he got into the company, he's been one of the top guys in the company as far as the way he's been portrayed. Never a burial there. But that's really the decision maker. That's the circle, if you will. The circle of advisors to Vince McMahon making those decisions. I'm surprised to hear that you feel there's no obligation to the fans because they're the ones paying for the tickets. They're the ones buying the pay-per-views. And when they stop doing that, there's a problem. And they have stopped doing that.
But like I've said, Vince makes John Cena, puts him out here. He's still selling a ton of stuff.
John Cena might be WWE business is not doing very good.
No
Stock prices at a 52-week low.
Doing
Several
good right
businesses
now.
are doing good right now.
Who?
LinkedIn with their IPO, Facebook's going to do an IPO later. Several businesses are doing good.
Social media networks.
The petroleum companies are doing great.
Well, because people
Your
gotta
side
go to work.
supports them. So they're doing great.
They'll always do well. See, you know what? You're throwing out nonsense again.
What do you mean?
The fact is, business across the board is...
I meant your side because you drive a large SUV.
I do drive a large SUV.
The politics of wrestling, will it ever go away?
Never.
Is it a beneficial or detrimental thing to the business?
Both.
Absolutely.
Because you have people that look out for the best part of the business, then you also have the ones that just look out for themselves.
When talents blame the writers, the bookers, the owners, is that valid?
Sure, absolutely.
Is it a two-way street?
Absolutely.
Who bears more of the burden?
The fans.
How so?
Because if they truly want someone to get over, they'll get them over. Instead of sitting there and complaining about it, and whining about it, and tweeting about it, and Facebooking about it, just email Vince McMahon. Email TNA. Say, hey, this is the guy we like. We want to see more of him. You can't stop the numbers. If the numbers are there, the guy's going to get over. But when everyone just sits there and complains about it, they become annoying. And that's what Vince loves. Prove him wrong.
The politics of professional wrestling, it's a story that could go on for hours, a story that has existed for years and will continue to exist in future years. It's our attempt here to talk about some of those stories, give you a perspective on what it really means to the business and what role not only you play, but what role the talents play in the politics of professional wrestling. So, thank you so much for joining us for this.
Don't forget, #1 draft pick, Kuzi.
We're a PG-rated program, and you have placed curse words out in front of the children who are
Who put
watching
this on
show.
there? This is not the one that I had. Shenanigans. This is embarrassing. Here, that's better. Super Friends.
Thank you. Maybe I'll just do interactive with Linda and Frank. I'm not sure how much longer I can deal with you, especially while you're winning in the draft.
Well, if you fix the microphone, it might be a little bit easier.
And by the way, capital punishment was just, we'll call that a
Abomination.
throwaway.
I mean, abomination.
We'll call that a throwaway pay-per-view because, again, I got screwed.
But you got kissed first this time.
This has been the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime, in-depth looking at the politics of professional wrestling. For that one, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again next week.